Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Frosty series, aka Chill Hill. We've just turned over cycle 50 and it's about time that we increase some of the industry in and around the colony. I think the priority is going to be getting off of these wood burners. Right now we're down to about 3 tons of wood. Granted, I think that value is going to go up as soon as we get 2 full ranches of floxes. This ranch only has 2, this ranch only has 7. And we are pushing out the flox fawn eggs as soon as possible. The only thing that would make this a little bit better is if we, put 2 powered incubators, but we're not in that much of a hurry. There are a couple floxes over here that would be a little bit quicker, so I think we're going to go in and grab them. 1 dig there, and another dig here should do it. And then we'll just wrangle this one and wrangle that one. Some people have asked the question why I'm warming up these rooms. They point out the fact that whenever the dupe comes over here to the wood heater, they get frost resistance. Well, they only get the frost resistance for 0.2 of a cycle. And if we take the case of, say, Freya here, who is running along, you can see they don't have the frost resistance. Okay, Freya's not a very good example because, well, they're frost-proof. Notice Chris here is going to eat. They also do not have the frost resistance buff and they have not warmed up. And yet, they're not chilly either. And the reason why they're not chilly is because the wood heater is keeping this room warm. So it saves them from having to come over here and get their little frost resistant buff. Also take into account that it's only using 25 grams per second and is producing enough carbon dioxide for 2 domesticated aloe veras. So all that said and done, it is definitely a subjective call, and I may do it differently in the future, but for now, I kind of like the wood heaters inside of the Great Halls. Is it a big difference? No, probably not. I'm sure there's some math or logical example that could sway my opinion one way or the other, so let me know in the comments below if you have a good argument for or against this case. But on the subject of industrializing our setup, getting rid of the wood heaters would help conserve some of that wood and also provide a lot more carbon dioxide. Right now we're producing 170 grams per second over the course of 300 watts of power, which is a little bit better than the petroleum generator, at least in the cause of carbon dioxide, because it produces 500 grams worth of carbon dioxide for 2,000 watts of power. But considering each aloe vera plant only requires 2 grams per second, I think the petroleum generator would do just fine. There is some other issues though. The wood heaters create 9,000 DTUs worth of heat. The petroleum generator produces 20,000. So as far as keeping the heat down to a minimum, the petroleum generator is better. And the way we can look at this is, yes, we're getting 20,000 DTUs worth of heat, but we're getting 2,000 watts of power for a ratio of 10 DTUs per watt. Whereas the wood burners with 9,000 DTUs worth of heat and 300 watts is a ratio of 30 DTUs per watt. So the more efficient energy generator, at least when we're concerned about heat production, is actually the petroleum generator. So for that reason, that's the direction we're heading to. Also, this coming build is going to include some metal refinery work, because right now we're having to use the rock crusher, which, as you know, destroys half of the ore, and while it does give us a little sand back, the ore is going to be much more valuable in the long term. Especially considering we're on a spaced out map without a lot of meat and potatoes. Ooh, one of my recent digs revealed a regular volcano. That's going to be fun. So far, we have found a regular volcano, a saltwater geyser producing saltwater at 95°C, and a cool salt slush geyser producing brine at -10. So far, that's all I've been able to find. But according to the star map, we still have quite a ways to go. There's an aluminum volcano on this planetoid, a beautiful carbon dioxide geyser, which I cannot wait to find, a natural gas geyser, which is going to help with some of the oven foods, and another potential source of power. Plus, there's a cool slush geyser that's going to give us some polluted water, and 3 more unknown geysers. So apparently Chill Hill has a lot of meat and potatoes that we're looking forward to cracking into. Now for the petroleum generator, we could use petroleum, which we don't have access to, or we could use ethanol. And right now, we have found a couple of sources. This source here is keeping our plum squash plants alive, and that way when the time comes, we'll ranch some mammoths. Right now, remember, we're not taming them because we don't have enough food to feed them quite yet. And that line extends from this area here up to the plum squashes. Pretty direct and simple route. But this amount here looks pretty decent, as does something way down here. And so while I did not want to dig south through here because of the obvious advantages of all that carbon dioxide coming down and fertilizing our aloe vera plants, I don't see a problem with going up through here. Ooh, there's some plum squashes and another mammoth egg. Let's move that. And I don't think I want to put a liquid lock in because we don't have access to Atmos suits and we don't need the duplicates getting sopping wet every time they come in here. I think we can utilize both this cool salt slush geyser for our metal refinery and this ethanol for the petroleum generators that are going to help power it. So what if we just run a ladder all the way down and see what we find? Ooh, let's not mess with that sporkid though. When do the zombie spores die off? Oh, this says it's 26 degrees in here. Unfortunately, zombie spores have a livable range of -105 to 290 and live in just about everything. Maybe we can get some liquid and kill off the zombie spores. So maybe we'll take a trip over here, let all this water sort of flow through here somehow, and then get rid of the sporkids. Okay, it's not a smart plan, but it's the one we're going with. And I think while we're going in here, we're going to utilize some regular tiles because this area is inevitably going to get a little warm. Igneous rock looks good since I just saw that wonderful volcano. And we're going to make a little ethanol tank just like this. One of the advantages of digging through this biome is all of the iron ore. There's a ton of veins through here. And while right now we have 14 tons of unrefined ore, we're definitely going to be using a lot of that up here in the next few cycles. I really wish this entire biome was separated by abyssalite. That would really help me keep all this chill, but we gotta do what we gotta do. In fact, when we do get down there, why don't we go in through here? Our dupes are definitely gonna get wet. Then I can make some sort of nice tank here for our cool slush geyser. Yeah, we'll see how this works out. Although it is gonna take the dupes a little bit of time. We did manage to hire several new dupes in the last episode, and our food is still climbing, which is a good thing. And with the 9 dupes, it requires 30 aloe veras to keep them all oxygenated. This is 27. Oh, this is 7 more. So that's great. We have a good ample supply. One note on the pips that we printed out. Well, the pip eggs. You'll see that they've taken some damage. In fact, this pip has moderate wounds. It wasn't me. I promise it wasn't me. We never put our hands on the pip. The problem is, the pip is wandering through areas that are too cold for its range. You can see its livable range is -30. Well, nowadays, when they get too cold, they start taking damage, which ironically enough also affects their athletics. And a quick look at the patch notes from the DLC reveals that critters with an internal temperature outside their comfort range suffer a happiness penalty, while critters experiencing an external temperature outside their livable range will gradually take damage. So please don't call the Critter Protection Agency on me. It wasn't my fault, I've kind of proved it. And why do we keep peeing up here? There's gotta be some melting ice or something. Our toilets are working just fine. Let me give the duplicates a few minutes to do some work in this biome and we'll get to our next steps. The dupes have used most of the oxygen that was already available in some of these cavities. Granted, there is some more down here, but I think this might be an excellent opportunity to highlight the use of the new sconces. Sconces? Sconce. Sconces. Let's put maybe one here and one up here. That should be good. Now, when the sconce is created, it creates an errand for delivery of 240 kilos worth of oxalite. So there's a positive and a negative about it. After the 240 kilos worth of oxalite is dissipated into the environment, well, there's going to be another errand. And as you can see, the oxalite goes down pretty quickly, especially in an area where you really need the oxygen. So this is going to increase dupe labor cost. It's also the reason why in my primary base, I just have a storage bin, the original sconce. It can hold 20 tons. and duplicants are going to keep bringing any oxalite they find over here, which will ultimately result in less duplicant labor cost. Now, in the future, we're going to do something a lot more fancy with our oxygen distribution, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen today. We need a lot more metal and more skill points. Poor Mikey Sheep is still working towards mechatronics engineering. I think in some of the future colonies, I'm going to roll for a mechatronics engineer in the beginning. But fear not, we will get there. You'll notice I'm leaving all of this granite as another sort of barrier. While it's not going to be as good as the abyssalite, at least it's some sort of physical medium that separates this side of the base with this side of the base. We could also use insulated tiles, but, well, we haven't researched insulated tiles yet, and I don't feel like spending the 400 kilos worth of materials for each tile. Not until we know the entirety of what we're working with on this colony. I just realized something as I queued up another ladder build to go further north. Look at all this beautiful, refined mercury. As a reminder, our cinnabar ore, when it's refined, will turn into a mercury. Unfortunately, it's a mercury liquid because the temperature thresholds for mercury is kind of specific. Anything warmer than minus 38.8 and it's going to be a liquid. So it has to stay at around minus 40 just to ensure you're not going to end up with a bunch of liquid mercury. The mercury itself, I haven't figured out too many great uses for it. While it does have a pretty high thermal conductivity, it does not have a very good specific heat capacity. As a comparison, our polluted water, which we like to use in some cooling loops, has a pretty high specific heat capacity in comparison with a 4.179. Granted, the thermal conductivity is only a 0.58. So while the metal itself is pretty good up here, because it's minus 60 degrees, I'm not sure what else we're going to be doing with it. Let me know in the comments below if you have some ideas of what to do with this mercury. Oh, happy day, it's a new point of interest area. Oh, look at this. And of course our main spine is going to interfere with it, but it's okay. I want to go examine this in all of its glory. So we're just going to kind of do one of these numbers. And as you can see, we have reached the space biome. So I'm not going to breach this surface here because I want to keep all of our atmosphere the way it is. Speaking of which, it might be helpful if I open up some of these oxygen pits. And I think we will take a little voyage over towards the left side of the map just to see what we find. Something like this. Oh, we're definitely going to get a dupe hurt here, though, because of all this snow. While we're up here, I wanted to make sure this shine bug did not get out, because I wanted to keep providing light for these bonbon trees. We've also are going to enable harvest on all of these because, well, they're another source of wood. Not to mention, in addition to the wood, we also get a little bit of nectar. Nectar's another fun liquid found in the DLC, and it has a lot of uses. First of all, it has a specific heat capacity of 4.1 and a thermal conductivity of 0.6, which already makes it a pretty good coolant comparable to polluted water. But it also has a much wider range, with the freezing point being at minus 82 and its evaporation point being at 160. Compare that to the polluted water, which flashes at 119 and freezes at minus 20. But even more interestingly is we can take that nectar, put it in a polymer press, and whammo blammo, we get plastic. Another use for the nectar is with the spigot seal. These cute doggy seal unicorns enjoy sipping nectar straight from the bonbon tree. And what we get when they sip the nectar from the bonbon tree is ethanol. Additionally, when the spigot seal ends up passing, they leave it behind tallow, which tallow we can then use to produce either crude oil or use it in some wonderful recipes like the delicious squash fries. In fact, most of the recipes that are in the deep fryer require some sort of tallow. So don't worry, little buddy, your time is coming too. So until such time that we are ready to deal with these bonbons, spigot seals, we're sort of trapping these shine nymphs in here because the thing about the bonbon tree is they do require light. So with these all being wild, it'll be a slow source of additional resources, but plenty worth it. In fact, why don't we also dig through here and we'll have even more bonbon trees. We have made our way up to the wonderful, I'm guessing, Gravitas showroom. I say Gravitas because, well, everything here is Gravitas, plus it has the little Gravitas symbol. And this is a showroom couch. You can see here they were trying to sell Murphy beds. Why can't my dupes sleep in a Murphy bed? There's also some interesting posters and art panels up here. Not that it'll do much for you, but you could make this into a nice little room. This is definitely going to stay around for this playthrough. Oh, something interesting I just realized about the bonbon trees. They can grow in a vacuum. And if they are growing in that vacuum, well, guess what? They're getting all the light they need. How about our spigot seals? How do they feel about the whole vacuum thing? I don't think they mind, just like most other critters. Back to the conversation about the wood heaters, I am disabling these temporarily, but it's not for the reason why you think. It's because, well, we're producing a little bit too much carbon dioxide right now, so I want this level not to be in carbon dioxide. So I'm going to turn at least these 2 wood heaters off up here and see if that drops the level a little bit. And why do we have... Oh, we found some mercury. I'm assuming some mercury that we dug out from up here fell and, of course, has then liquefied. While we are not yet taming the mammoths, they have been producing some wonderful mammoth patties. I'll let you use your imagination on where those mammoth patties come from. But if we go take a look at our rock crusher, we can take those mammoth patties and turn them into phosphorite and clay. This phosphorite is going to be useful not only for our pike apples, but also eventually for a fertilizer synthesizer, which will require dirt and phosphorite, and some polluted water, but I think you know where I'm already going to be getting it. Something else I wanted to point out that is new to the DLC is look at the, I'm going to call it the Aurora Borealis effect, that appears on top of the planet. Here's another one. I don't think these appear on any other planetoid, but I definitely thought it was a nice touch by the Clay team. Ooh, there's a vent or a geyser up here. I want to see what that is. I think we'll dig up through here. Like I said, I'm being very careful to make sure I don't get into space quite yet. We've got some more skill points coming up. Right now, I've been making sure everybody has enough skills to reduce our duplicate labor cost. Some of the newer dupes, we're also making sure they're getting into critter ranching and farming because we have so much of that going to be going on the planetoid. I'm also keeping an eye on the morale requirements though, because I do not want to start stressing these dupes out. Where's our digger? Naz, why don't you have super duper hard digging yet? Maybe I shouldn't have put him into improved carry 2 and saved that for super duper hard digging, so we're gonna have to wait another 1690 skill points before we have a tier 3 digger. And we require that in order to get through this obsidian here. It's okay, there's plenty more digging to go. We're making great progress down here thanks to the wonderful sconces, which I've turned to be somewhat of a believer. Now that this place is much more oxygenated, you'll notice the oxalite's dissipating much slower. And these little guys only require 25 kilos of an ore, so they're reasonably priced too. One thing I am going to change though, Chris Offler here is not having a good day. They're sopping wet, they have major eye irritation and chilly surroundings, so I think it'd be smart to put a wood heater in here somewhere. That way, even if the dupe goes into the water and then comes out, they can go get fresh again. Now, I want to be careful of where I put it in relation to the sconces, because anytime a piece of carbon dioxide floats over the sconce, it's going to release oxalite, which could end up overpressurizing this whole cavity. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to try to put it below the sconces. Maybe right here? We're going to have some other stuff up here too, so that might work out well. This is working out very well. Mikey Sheep just got done working down in the, I guess, liquid pits. And despite that, they have their frost resistance, they have no sopping wet. So mental note, whenever you're digging in and around this planetoid, add a sconce and a wood heater. Because I can't help myself, we have found yet another dupe. This one is an auto. Not only are they going to start with the increased athletics, but they're going to be a perfect pick 'em up and set 'em down dupe with supplying and tidying. Additionally, they're handy. Welcome to Chill Hill, duplicate number 10 gave up. Our nice little pit here is complete, so I think it's time to turn this into a quasi-industrial freezer? Yep, that's what we're going with. Well, at least for now, because it's sitting between minus 23 and minus 30, but that will eventually change. Now, I know you noticed this pit here, and that's because it's going to be collecting polluted water for us. And that polluted water is going to be coming from our petroleum generators. We're also going to need some heavy watt wire. We could go directly into conductive wire, but I'm going to use heavy watt down in this industrial freezer. And while the duplicates are working on that research, I'm going to put in a Liquid pump, I think iron is good. We're up to 73 tons after we cored out this entire area. Just now thinking about all the heavy wrought wire coming all the way up here and then back down, that would be a lot of bad decor. I could put a joint plate in here. Yeah, that's what we might do. The joint plate is right here in the same advanced power regulation. We could alternatively use conductive wire, but I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm going to take a look at it when we finish the research, because while the decor is not too bad right now, it's going to get really bad here in a few cycles. And there's going to be a little bit of work being done down here, so I'd rather not blast the dupes with that negative decor being caused by the heavy wrought wire. We'll see. I'd also like to pick up all this junk that's appearing down here, because I want this to be nothing but brine and nothing but polluted water, and eventually it's going to get heated enough where this ice will melt. I do have an ice storage down here, which just makes it more convenient for when the duplicants want to feed the aloe veras. But we should probably set up our nice sweep location, which will require an automatic dispenser over here. No wonder why research wasn't progressing. I started seeing some idle dupes while we're waiting on the research, so I've activated eggshells to lime. We're sitting around 50 kilos worth of eggshells, so that'll help with steel production here in a little while. I've also queued up some more dig commands and added a couple more doors so that we can keep harvesting what little wood comes from the bonbon trees and occasionally some nectar. Oh, there's another great use right here. All the meanwhile, we're getting some good exploration in. I am making sure that the little shine bugs only stay where they're supposed to, and that way increases the chance that the bonbon trees are getting the light they need. And in other good news, Naz finally has enough skill points to go to super duper hard digging and get their amazing final hat. Lily Sap has earned the critter ranching hat. JM Mort, I think we're just going to be paused on for now. And Mikey Sheep is only one away from getting their mechatronics engineering. We finally unearthed this vent, and it is a steam vent, which is interesting because I've never seen a steam vent this high. So I'm looking forward to doing something creative with it. I also noticed a couple of nice bonbon spots right in here, so we're going to go gobble those up too. And then make sure this is on harvest as well. And since we're also going to go up through here until we finally reach yet another little bonbon area. This one I'm not as concerned about. There's no light here, so these bonbon trees are not going to be growing. Well, more precisely, the trees themselves will grow, but they're not going to produce any nectar. I probably misspoke on that fact a few times during this episode. But the light is what makes them synthesize nectar, but the branches are still going to grow. Oh, look at this smorgasbord. We'll definitely get in this one too, because it has plenty of eggshells and trees. All said, with our digging efforts, we've revealed most of this area, and remind me never to choose volcanic activity again. Well, it creates some problems. Yeah, we're going to have a few nice volcanoes to deal with, but man, is this going to be a pain dealing with all this hot obsidian. All said and done, I've made my decision. The heavy wrought wire, while easier and a research tech prior to the conductive wire, does not take refined metal. It does take 100 kilos worth of ore, whereas the conductive wire takes 25 kilos, which is 4 times better. So even if at the beginning I have to use the rock crusher to get some of that refined metal, it still would end up saving us, because 100 kilos would turn into 50, which means we'd still get 2 conductive wires from it. Whereas it would only be a half of a heavy watt wire. So I'm going to start off with a quick 20, and it should be the last time we have to waste so much ore using the rock crusher. Also on the good news front is we have all the plum squashes we need, so we can now start to ranch these mammoths, which means we're going to be getting a lot of reed fiber, and we're going to be able to turn that reed fiber into suits. On top of suits, we're going to be able to give everybody a warm jacket. It's also time to put down our first couple of petroleum generators. I'm going to use 2, even though we're not going to come close to using that amount of power on this colony yet. We will hook it up with some automation wire, just like this. And to start off with, we are just going to use this pump here. And yeah, I'll be a little wasteful and go down the ladder because it looks so nice. And then up here, we're going to put some more mesh tiles in and get to work on researching the metal refinery. This is also going to give us access to the fire pole. I'm not 100% sure I want to use the fire pole yet. Yeah, there are some areas it would definitely become handy, but I haven't found that aluminum volcano yet. Of course, we do have plenty of iron ore around this colony, so maybe we should? I'm also tired of ice melting in here, so we're going to dig all this out and get it swept up once and for all. There is some polluted ice up here, but it's trapped, because every time we're getting sopping wet because the duplicants are walking in the ice. We've also been sweeping it up and putting it in our nice storage drop-off right here. And because of our little seal setup, oh, where do you think you're going? You're going back into here. We're starting to get little drops of ethanol because the seal is putting their little horn inside the bonbon tree, drinking the nectar, and then spitting out ethanol on the other side. So I'll be mopping this up from time to time too, and we'll put a wonderful bottle empty here, and I'll drop all of the ethanol we find in and around the map into our petroleum generated ethanol selection. Now, this ethanol is going to last for quite some time because we don't have a huge power usage, but eventually we are going to have to grab the ethanol distiller and start turning that wood into ethanol. But that's a long-term plan. We don't have to worry about that right yet. And apparently I need to slow down on the tasks because, well, it's a giant mess in here. Granted, a lot of this polluted water is dropping and then subsequently freezing. This is going to cause stress issues if I'm not careful. Ooh, free spicy tofu is always hard to turn down. But in this case, I think the 2 tons worth of copper ore is a little bit better. We are doing phenomenal on calories. Most of it pineapple skewers, but we also have plenty of plum squashes. We also have raw meat because we have not been turning it into barbecue. Let's do that now. We did unearth our natural gas geyser all the way up here at the top of our map. So I'll be looking forward to getting into some natural gas generators as well. For such a tiny planetoid, it doesn't look like we're going to have much issue when it comes to power. And we still have a little bit more to explore. It goes all the way down here. This setup is finally complete. We're going to start this off at, say, 90-60. That seems to be good enough. And we need to kickstart it with just a little bit of power. So we'll just use a quick temporary wheel. That'll be enough power to turn on the liquid pump, which will then pump the ethanol over into the petroleum generators. Now, the petroleum generators are going to produce polluted water, hence the reason we put them right over this wonderful tank. I did put a liquid pump in here because we're eventually going to use that polluted water for, well, I don't quite know. I'm not too worried about the polluted water off-gassing because this whole area is going to get filled with carbon dioxide pretty quickly. And just 1 second of NAS running brings the ethanol down. I can disable this and then subsequently deconstruct it. And our petroleum generators very quickly fill up the rest of that smart battery. Now, right now, all that polluted water is just going to freeze because it's too cold. Eventually, the thought is the place is going to heat up enough because of the petroleum generators and the damage we're going to be doing with the metal refinery. Speaking of which, that research is complete. Now, normally I like to make my metal refineries out of something that can withstand the heat, like ceramic. We don't have access to anything like that, so I think we're just going to use regular old igneous rock. This area is nice and chilly anyways, so it shouldn't be a big deal. In it goes. We'll hook it up with power. Still have a little bit of that iron ore left, but I don't know how much we're going to have after this run. I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more. And while the duplicants are laying in that power line, we can also start our pipes. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of liquid areas to dump the hot water in, but since we are picking up the chill water from over here, we're just going to go straight up and in, and then we will drop the warm water as far over here as possible. Something like this. And the intent is that way the warm water coming out of the metal refinery after it's been used as a coolant is going to drop off over here and have a lot longer to sort of cool back down before it ends up going back in the metal refinery. Now, of course, this cool salt slush geyser has gone dormant on me because of course it has. So I'm going to get an analysis on it and see when the next time it erupts. And I'm going to try to concentrate most of my metal refinery work when the cool salt slush geyser is active. That way it's producing that minus 10C. And with that, our industrial freezer is about done. Yeah, we're getting some cold damage in here. That's just going to have to be how it is until this area warms up just a little bit. But I think we'll start off with, say, a ton of iron. And when we do that, the brine is going to raise in temp by almost 40 degrees, which is kind of perfect for our needs. Next up is going to be replacing all of this 2-strand wire with our conductive wire, but that's going to take quite a bit of iron. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to put, say, 40 on here, and then I'll end up seeing how hot this brine ends up getting. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode and the introduction to our industrial chiller, or industrial freezer? I don't know. Let me know if you have a recommendation for a better name down in the comments below. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.